I open up Facebook and my best friend Amanda just got married.
It was almost like a secret hush-hush kind of thing. You went off and got married without me? And I said, what in the hell is going on? He made us all feel like he was going to take care of her.
It was literally picture perfect to the outside world.
Somebody was lurking around her house.
Something's really wrong. The hairs on my arms are standing up.
The first thing that came out of my mouth was like, pack your and get out of that house.
Why couldn't I put the pieces together? Was I not intuitive enough?
I should have done something. I lived a nightmare from that day on. A living, walking nightmare.
What did you do when they started fighting?
I heard Miss Amanda screaming, and I thought she was, like, getting hurt, so I ran in there.
Well, it goes to show you that you don't know what's going on behind those closed doors.
I was scared that one of them might get hurt.
Amanda is a 4th of July when it came to personalities. When you think of 4th of July, you think of sun, having fun. Amanda has a warmth about her.
And that is Amanda Pardue, age 35. And the reason why she's wearing scrubs is because she's working at the Hamilton Female Clinic.
She was the receptionist, and she absolutely loved it.
She loves helping people because that's how Amanda was. Amanda was like a ball of sunshine. And she would make you feel like you were the best person in the world. She already had 2 children. She had a boy and a girl. She had already been divorced for a couple years before I met her.
The children ended up going to live with the grandparents, but her kids were doing great, and so she was still really happy and upbeat and optimistic about the future.
Amanda was a single female. She was a beautiful girl. So yes, she dated. At that time, it was the big rave to go on the internet to find somebody that you can connect with. So she was going on them sites. She hit left. And that's how she met Seth Peralt, through the internet.
Well, he was very handsome, kind of dashing, had a little bit of money so that they could do things and have fun.
He made her feel wonderful, beautiful. Before you knew it, she was in love. They were in love. We were like, slow the roll, slow down. But how can you tell somebody when they're in love to slow down? Seth had this beautiful home. The town was called Social Circle. It's here in Georgia. But Amanda was looking for love, not a home. It wouldn't have mattered if he lived in a mobile home or if he had that home. She was in love with him. They moved in together. A little bit fast, a little bit fast, but wonderful.
Well, I was so happy for her, very happy.
I went and visited Amanda to check out this guy because I want to know more about him. And I interrogate people, and I interrogated him. And that's how I found out a lot of things. Whoa. He couldn't tell me how he made his money because he didn't have a job. You got your beautiful home, you got your cars, you got your motorcycles, without a job. How do you do that? Because I would like to know, because I want to do that. He didn't have no money. That it was all his father's money. That's how they were living. That's how they were eating.
I mean, who's almost 40 and has their parents paying for everything?
6 months after her and Seth had moved in together. Knock, knock, you have a little girl. I get a phone call from Amanda, it's funny now, saying he's got a kid. I'm thinking, where in the hell did this baby come from?
It was a surprise that Seth had a daughter. Her name was Bray.
Seth had this ex-girlfriend, and they ended up having a baby.
I know that Amanda was oddly cool about it. She's a better person than I am. I would have had questions.
She opened her arms and took that child in. Amanda fell in love with her. No qualms, no nothing. She took that child in, it was her own.
I open up my phone and I look on Facebook, and my best friend of 38 years just got married.
The only people who were at the wedding was Seth, Amanda, her daughter, her son, and Bray. That's it. It was almost like a secret hush-hush kind of thing. I said, you went off and got married without me? Oh, Vina, it was so rush, rush, rush. He wouldn't let me get my hair done. He wouldn't let me do this. He wouldn't allow me to do that. I said, what in the hell is going on? If you are so much in love with somebody, would you not give him the wedding? Would you not want her sisters there and her best friend and her to be so happy? That tells you it was a business. He wanted Amanda for a certain reason. I told her it was a very bad idea to stop working. You always have to have your own little money. But what I got from Amanda is that Seth wanted her home to be a housewife. That was his way of controlling her. Financial control. By telling her how much she can spend, what she can spend. Why? He's got her life in his hands. And he knows it. One day, I got a phone call from Amanda saying that my husband's gonna join the police force. I said, what? You go from not having a job to becoming a police officer. And in Georgia, that is a lot of weight. You're a good old Southern boy that's a cop. But she was so proud that he did it. You have pictures of him getting his badge, and she's standing right next to him, and they're all beaming with pride.
The idea of Seth becoming a police officer was mind-boggling to me. I think that he specifically chose being a police officer for his ego, so that he could have more control, even more than he already had. When Seth wants something, Seth gets it.
For him, that uniform meant I'm better than you, and now I can prove it. I am above the law, because I am the law.
I am a real estate broker. Amanda had reached out to me and asked me to help Seth's father with selling the house at Social Circle. So I had a friend at the time, and I said, let's make a road trip out of it. Let's go visit my friend Amanda. And Amanda was just so happy to see me. We walked through the house, and she's so proud of the decor. But all of a sudden, Seth walks in. And I look over at Amanda, and she's like ghost white. Her entire demeanor changed once we got into the car. My friend said, Carrie, something's really wrong. And she said, look, she said, the hairs on my arms are standing up. She said, Carrie, don't be surprised if he kills her. I was like, you are insane. I was so confused because Amanda had what she'd always wanted. She had the house, she had Bray to take care of, she's living her best life. I didn't want to hear what my friend was trying to articulate to me, that Amanda was in danger. I wasn't ready to hear it.
They had lake access, they have golf carts, very safe neighborhood. It's a perfect neighborhood to raise your family in. When they first moved in there, everything was hunky-dory. And the neighbors thought Seth was a nice gentleman. They felt a little bit more secure because he was a police officer. He was the law.
Life looked perfect. It was literally picture perfect to the outside world. Amanda always made it out to be that everything was fine. Everything's great. So I started feeling a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable until the text started coming. Amanda finally started bringing me in a little bit about some things that were going on with her. Seth would call her fat and would just demean her and call her really ugly names.
That's like the beginning. But them little things escalate. And before you know it, he's pushing you around, grabbing a hold of you. For him, it's like a power trip. They're trying to mentally break you down. They began to fight. So what Amanda did was went to the next door neighbor's bushes. She hid in their bushes so he wouldn't see her.
And Seth automatically assumed that she went to the neighbor's house. And he literally barges in the door of this neighbor, and he's going through their house, and they're just like in shock. And they're like, what are you doing here? I'm looking for my wife. Where's she at? I know she's here. And they're like, no, she's not here. Get out of our house. We're gonna call the police. And he says, I am the police. To me, that shows me that he's not a real police officer. He's more of a wolf in sheep's clothing. These were strangers. And if he could treat complete strangers like that, I thought, what must Amanda have been going through all alone? I stopped receiving phone calls. I stopped getting messages. All of that went away.
She'd be calling me through the iPad or Messenger, Facebook Messenger thing. Amanda did not have a cell phone. I believe the reason why she did not have a cell phone is that he could keep tabs on her all the time. Seth had completely controlled the money because Amanda didn't have any.
Amanda couldn't even buy feminine products. Her basic needs were not even being met.
We successfully got her to leave a couple times. She would leave and he'd be on the phone trying to get her back before she could get out of the driveway.
He finds her kryptonite, and her kryptonite is, if you don't come back, who knows what's gonna happen to Bray?
Seth would call make that phone call, and she would go home. That little girl is what kept her in that house, because she considered that little girl her own child, and she was not going to leave her. My birthday's on June 6th. Amanda always would call me. I was getting a little confused because Amanda wasn't calling me for my birthday like she always does, and we Zoom. So I would physically see her. Well, she wouldn't Zoom me. She would just call me. And I said, no, I want to Zoom. I want to see your face. I want to see you. And she's like, no, 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 no. And I'm thinking to myself, something's not right. I had my phone in my hand. So I quickly hit that button for a Zoom to where we could be on camera. And I took that picture within seconds. Picture I took of Amanda, it scared me. So I took the picture, I don't know, so I could show her one day, so she could see it, you know? Like, this is what he does to you. You can see where her jaw is all swollen. And I asked her, what's going on here? Well, she told me really what happened. He turned around and jacked her right in the jaw. Just punched her like a man. He almost broke her jaw. That's how hard he hit her. Then another occurrence happened. These are the pictures that she took of herself. Looks like he punched her in the face. Her eyes all swollen. It just makes me angry. Just anger. After that picture was taken, life got a hell of a worse. Everything escalated.
Some days later, I get this really alarming, cryptic text from Amanda. Have a super jealous husband that records everything. He will see this message because our phones are synced and my house has cameras throughout. And then she says, monitored all day and night. You know, she's scared. She can't do anything without him seeing what she's doing. And then Amanda says, have a nice place, but living in a prison. Going to delete these messages. He may still see them, but keep them for me, please. Amanda was leaving breadcrumbs with me because she trusted that I would be able to communicate if something ever happened to her. I had the breadcrumbs. Why couldn't I put the pieces together? Was I not intuitive enough? I feel guilty that I could have done more or should have done more.
One night, I got a phone call from Amanda. This was probably, I don't know, probably 9:30, 10 o'clock. Saying that somebody was lurking around her house. She saw somebody walking. She didn't see who it was a shadow. She could tell that it was a man that walked by the window. It scared the crap out of her. I said, well, did you call 911? She goes, no, I called Seth, and Seth told me not to call the cops, that he's going to take care of her when he gets home. He told Amanda, do not call the police, don't get them involved. The second time it happened, again, I thought, it's got to be one of these hoodlums that are around the neighborhood trying to break into people's cars or something. And then the basement door, somebody was trying to get in it. She's got a child at home by herself. Somebody's wiggling the door. She's scared. She calls her husband. He tells her, calm down. I'll take care of it. That's when I knew something wasn't right. He's a cop. Somebody's trying to break into your house. Where's your security? Where's your lights? They only occurred when Seth was on night shift. It never occurred any time when Seth was actually home.
So we had the suspicion, all of this burglary nonsense, was purely Seth playing games with Amanda, terrorizing her and just control over her and making her feel fear.
On January 28th of 2020, I got a Zoom call from Amanda. She was in the bedroom with Bree, and she was crying hysterically. I knew something was going on. She's Zooming me. So I'm getting an actual view of Amanda when it actually went down. Seth grabbed a hold of her and pulled her out of the house. You can hear Bree in the background. Mommy, are you okay? Mommy, are you okay? First thing come out of my mouth is hang the phone up, call 911.
Amanda finally gets help from someone outside. The neighbors provided Amanda with a safe place, and police are called.
Thank you for holding. How may I help you?
Yes, can you please send the officer out to Long Island Drive?
What is your name?
Amanda Perrault.
Okay, what's going on today?
It's my husband. He's putting his hands on me.
Who is?
My husband. He works for Eatonton Police Department.
What's his name?
Michael Seth Perrault.
Has he threatened you with his weapon or anything?
No, he hasn't, but he has put his hands on me. He's like putting his finger in my face and pushing me against the wall and putting his hands on my neck.
Okay. We'll get somebody out there, okay?
Seth Perrault's wife reported that she'd been assaulted by Seth. The deputies responded. She had some reddish marks around her neck area, chest area, right in here. He basically battered her in that way and thrown her out of the home. They, in turn, talked to the daughter. She ran and hid in the closet while this happened. That wasn't the first time she hid in the closet, that she tried to intervene to help Amanda.
And how do you say your name?
Bray.
Bray?
R-A.
What did you do when they started fighting?
I was kind of just there trying to protect Miss Amanda because Daddy could take on his own self. I went to go in my bedroom because my dad said so, and then I heard Miss Amanda screaming, and I thought she was like getting hurt, so I ran in there, and I think Daddy may have kicked her. I'm not really sure. And then all of a sudden, Daddy just started grabbing her arms, and then she was trying to get around him, and then Daddy just pushed her over the laundry table.
And Bray says, you know, my daddy hit my mommy and pushed her out the door.
What did you think when you saw that?
I was mad at my daddy. I don't understand why Daddy would do such a thing.
The cops put him in handcuffs and take him out of the house.
As they were getting ready to put him in the patrol car and take him to jail, he said to her, I got you now.
And Amanda's telling me they're taking him to jail. They're taking him to jail. The first thing that came out of my mouth was like, pack your and get out of that house. You don't get it. He's going to lose his job over this. He's going to kill you, Amanda. The next day, she goes to the court.
The judge considered that Seth had to stay away from his wife as a condition of bond while this matter was pending. But Amanda actually said that she did not want that to occur. Now, she was distraught, I could tell. The judge was very adamant, asking her, was she sure? She didn't want a stay-away order in place. And she answered that she was sure. Her response was, well, he doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Of course he had somewhere to go. He has family. He had plenty of places to go. He's sitting in that jail cell. His world is crumbling around him. And Seth used Amanda's love for Bray. Amanda's worst fear was, would he hurt Bray he verbalizes that to Amanda, I can only imagine that she felt defeated. So that was Amanda's attempt at trying to show Seth, I can fix this. I can fix it. And Amanda knows a restraining order won't stop Seth.
And Amanda went to that judge and told that judge he can come home. I was sick to my stomach. When she did that, that judge signed her death warrant. In his eyes, Amanda had ruined his life. And that was it.
Not only was Seth getting ready to lose his job as a police officer, he was looking at losing custody of his child too.
He sat there in that house with her for 6 days. I remember being on the phone calls with her. I'm talking to her, saying, "Are you okay, Amanda? How is the situation? How is he acting?" And he was acting so nice. It was disgusting. I was like, "You need to get out of that house, Amanda. You need to get out of that house."
That day in February, I pulled up to Long Island Drive with my subpoena for Mr. Peralt. When I got to his place, I had one of those video doorbells, and I pushed the button and waited. And I heard heavy footfalls inside the house, and I assumed that it was somebody running to the door. The footfalls moved from one side of the house, kind of toward the front door, but not to the front door. And the footfalls retreated. I rang the doorbell again. I was there for about 7 minutes. Like, come on, man, just answer the door. The man would have known what it was. And finally, I gave up. So I drive away from the Peralt's house, and I go on about my patrolling. I make it 3 or 4 or 5 miles away, and I get a call from my shift supervisor requiring me to return to the Peralt house because of a reported incident. I go quickly. Seth Peralt comes out the front door of the house. He was holding his cell phone, and he was blubbering. He was inconsolable. He said that Amanda was dead.
I get a personal call from the chief of police. He's got Seth Peralt on the phone, and Seth has told him that his wife had committed suicide. We drove as fast as we could, with lights and sirens on. I arrive on the scene. Seth was sitting on the steps holding his hands over his eyes. I walked in the house, and I entered the bedroom, and I saw the body of the deceased. It was Amanda Peralt. And I could see a gunshot wound to her head. This is Amanda's body. And the first thing you see in the bottom right-hand corner there below her feet is the pistol itself. You see her body with her legs together. She's flat on her back. Her arms are pulled completely against her side. And on her right side, maybe 4 or 5 inches from her right hand, is the magazine to the pistol. Well, I'm a graduate of the FBI National Academy, and I've got a college degree, but you know what? Anybody could tell that scene wasn't right.
The sheriff had asked Peralt if he would ride with me to the sheriff's office. He was not under arrest. I realized just how clean he was. The man had no blood on him. Law enforcement officers are trained first responders. The first responders try to stop the blood from coming out. You don't walk away from scenes like that clean. He just kept talking and blubbering. He reiterated that his wife had committed suicide. But when we got closer to the sheriff's office, he begged me to pull the car over and shoot him in the head. It was unsettling. It made the little short hairs come up on your neck because it wasn't right. Perhaps his wife hadn't killed herself.
And so we went back to my office and interviewed him about what had occurred that day.
Sheriff, I've lost everything. By the way, I know how this goes. You know, I'm a police officer. You know, I know how this goes. Can I talk to you off the record and talk to you plainly?
Well, we're talking pretty plain.
Okay. Yes, sir. I lost my wife. And I promise you, I'll look you in your face as a law enforcement officer. I did not do anything. I had nothing to do with it. My wife looked at me and executed herself.
Of all the times I've ever questioned anybody, I've never heard anyone use the term executed.
She looked at me and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I put you through this. I saw my wife execute herself.
That's an unusual term to use when making reference to a suicide.
Listen, your deputies arrested me, okay?
This is not about the other day. This is about your wife being dead today.
My whole name got destroyed. Every time she'd go click on Facebook, she'd be like, there it is.
The only thing he wanted to tell me was that my deputies shouldn't have arrested him on January the 28th, and what a great police officer he was.
I take pride in being a good law enforcement agent. I hope you know that. And the fact of the matter is, I'm a good police officer.
You want to talk about your arrest, you want to talk about all of that. I want to talk about your wife.
And I'm willing to talk to you about it.
Let me say, have you had anything to drink today?
It was a very bizarre interview. It really was.
I kept on getting a Facebook phone call. And I'm thinking, who in the hell is calling my phone at 10 o'clock at night through Facebook? And it was Amanda's cousin. And first thing he said, did you speak to Amanda today? I knew it. I said, he killed her. He killed her. And that's how I found out my best friend died.
Well, I knew he was guilty, but what I wanted was more evidence before I actually made an arrest. So I'd let him go that day.
We already knew that he killed her. We knew it wasn't a suicide. And knowing that he was let go and back out on the streets was devastating.
And then I lived a nightmare from that day on. A living, walking nightmare.
I went back out to the scene. I laid down on the bed myself to show the district attorney the position the body had been in. You mean to tell me that she shot herself and then she laid supine, pulled her legs together, completely together, pulled her arms against the body, took the magazine out of the gun after she shot herself? Dead people don't remove magazines out of guns. You know, it was just evidence of guilt, in my opinion. I decided to obtain an arrest warrant and go arrest him. When I went to his sister's home where I knew he was staying, when I pulled up in the yard to get out of the car, he's sitting on the porch talking to his attorney. During the trial, I testified in court.
It was absolutely obvious to me that Amanda Peralta could not have shot herself, and somebody absolutely had to have taken the magazine from that pistol, moved that pistol to the location it was, and had to have moved that body.
Throughout the trial, at any time I looked at him, I never saw Seth express any remorse or anything of that. He was pretty much stoic and often looked at the table itself, not even in the direction of the witnesses or anything. One of the most damaging pieces of evidence against Seth was when his daughter said that Amanda had told her that if Seth lost custody of Bray because of that arrest, that Seth was going to shoot her dead, is what the child said. Well, he was convicted of murder, and when the jury returned the guilty verdict, the Judge Trammell, our Chief Superior Court judge, promptly sentenced him to life without parole. Well, it goes to show you that you don't know what's going on behind those closed doors. The facade of what you see on the outside is not indicative of what's going on the inside. Very sad situation.
Right now, what's important is that Amanda's story is out, but it hurts a lot. It's tremendous amount of guilt and pain and sadness.
She was my life. So yeah, I'll go to my grave thinking I should have done something. I should have just got in my car, got on the damn plane, and just pulled her out of that house. But I didn't. I gotta look up to the sky to talk to my best friend because I did not take the initiative. So yeah, go find out what's going on. Do something. Just do something.
I do take solace in that I kept the messages. When I spoke with my friend, she'd say, "You will always have my back, and I love you so much for that." My thoughts and prayers are with you in these days, months, and years ahead. God bless Amanda.
Mandy was not allowed to have any boyfriends growing up. You had to make sure you lived by the Bible. If you didn't, it was a sin.
The reason Mandy married Paul so quick was because they were trying to do things right. She seemed happy, and that made me happy.
At first, Paul seemed like a good man. But the trouble was, she knew nothing of him.
The folks who are quiet, those are the folks that you may least expect, but who could prove to be the most dangerous.
I just want you to tell me what happened.
You know what happened.
This case is one that involves an act of evil.
They're gonna take her side over me, no matter what.
It was a tragedy. It broke our whole family.
I would have liked to have ripped his head off and fed it to my pigs.
I'm gonna be betrayed as a monster.
Mandy was really outgoing. She was an amazing person. She taught me how to ride bikes, and we played dolls and went on trips to Tennessee.
Mandy was very quirky. She was always being funny, being more silly than funny. You know what I mean? She always tried to make you laugh. That was how she came across. She had a real personality. My grandfather was a pastor of our local church. We went to church. It was like Wednesday night Bible study, Saturday night, choir practice, Sunday morning service, night service. So that was a big part of our weeks. This is Mandy's baptizing photo. She was like 15 or 16 there. I did feel like we were sheltered a little much. Dating and boys, that was not something that they did in the church.
Mandy was not allowed to have any boyfriends growing up. Papa was very strict on that.
You didn't have those relations until you were married. That's something in all churches around here. That's in this whole community.
It was a very strict way of growing up. Couldn't do much what you wanted. You had to make sure you lived by the Bible. If you didn't, it was a sin.
Paul LeMay met Mandy online. They met on Facebook. Paul LeMay came down to Eastern Kentucky by way of Massachusetts. I think Paul was very smitten by Mandy. I think he was very attracted to the idea that a woman so far away wanted him. And that's what precipitated his relocation to Eastern Kentucky.
The trouble was, she knew nothing of him.
Paul was older. He was 47 or 48. He'd already lived life, so in her mind, she thought he was smarter about things.
Mandy liked that he was different, not from around here. Paul would come every other weekend to come take her to church.
Paul was portrayed to me as a religious person and a good guy. He was this big Christian guy who was really nice. I was happy for her. She had said that they had things in common, that they could actually talk to each other for a long time. She seemed happy, and that made me happy.
They dated about 7 months at the most. And then they got married.
From what she had told me, the reason she married Paul so quick was because they were trying to do things right. It was just a little small wedding, just a few people from that church that they went to.
It was a 15-minute ceremony. It wasn't nothing fancy. My grandparents thought it was a good thing, too, to get married to Paul. They liked that he had a job, could provide for her, and had 2 vehicles.
Paul didn't have much family nearby. None of his family was there, I know that. Looking back, that was very weird to me. I've personally never met none of Paul's family.
Paul LeMay has this mysterious past where we don't know a lot about his background, and that may be by design. It's possible that he doesn't want Mandy or her family or anybody to know a lot about him. It's interesting because we have someone who, on one hand, has estranged or distant relationships from family members, but on the other hand, has an identified loved one that they've idolized. It sets itself up for problems in the future.
Paul and Mandy lived in Oil Springs, Sayersville, Kentucky. Just a little town, a little back road. Paul, he worked at a nursing home, and he brought home the money.
He paid for the home that they lived in.
She didn't have to work at all, Mandy didn't. He made sure she had everything she needed, didn't let her go without. At first, Paul seemed like a good man, from what I've seen anyway.
But sometimes Paul would say a lot of negative things on Facebook. That may have been his way to get his point across, was through social media. Say the things on there that he couldn't say in person.
It's a Facebook post from Paul. All my life I've been called no good, that I'm worthless, that I will never amount to anything. I finally had enough and I came here to Kentucky, where I've got myself a home that I paid for. I have a beautiful, loving wife, and anyone says otherwise, they are a liar.
He was very fragile. I could see that. He never opened up, wouldn't talk. Maybe there was a reason behind it. There was a madness in his old life that I didn't know about.
Paula May's Facebook posts say to me that this is someone who's vulnerable and identifies with this role of someone who's been victimized and has to take on the world.
At the time, me and my husband had separated. My children were tiny. Mandy, she's like, if you want to, you can come here, you can stay with me and Paul. She's like, we can spend time together, get back to being sisters. And so, in my mind, it was an awesome idea because I loved Mandy. She was my best friend.
Mandy, she loved her hair dye. She started dyeing her hair crazy colors. It was blue, purple, and one time she mixed it up and it was half blonde, half blue.
One time we were gonna dye both of our hair that same night. And we was gonna go out and get the hair dyed. And Paul wouldn't allow us to do it. Paul, it wasn't a necessary thing, so she wasn't allowed to do it.
Why was that?
I don't know why he wouldn't allow her to do it. I'm trying to answer these for you, but I can't find a rhyme to the reason of why he wouldn't let her. I suppose he treated her like a child.
The fact that Paul LeMay's relationship with Mandy appears to be more like that of a father and a daughter is indicative of his controlling nature. It's also interesting that in this day and age, where social media and videos of one another are very common, that there's actually very little of that with Paul LeMay and Mandy. If he can control the little day-to-day tasks that she does, he can ultimately control her life.
Paul would work and he would come home and I would say, hi, Paul. He would say hello, and that was it. He would always lock himself in his bedroom.
The folks who are quiet and brooding and kind of seething underneath, those are the folks that you may least expect, but who could prove to be the most dangerous.
He would always lock himself in his bedroom. I thought it was weird. He wouldn't associate with the rest of us. Nobody really knew what was going on in there. Paul could be quiet, Paul could be shy. Behind closed doors, Paul could be a creep. He would lock himself in there like a hermit crab. One time she had opened the door and asked him what he wanted for supper, and he told her, I don't care what we have for supper, I don't care if we effing eat or not. In my mind, she was trying to take care of him and do what a wife should be doing for a husband. And he was straight up disrespectful to her.
This is Mandy at a rough time. Not 25, probably. This looks like the time she had gotten arguments with Paul.
A lot of the times they would argue. They would argue in the bedroom, in their room. And we tried to stay away from that because I had kids and I didn't want them to hear that. So we always tried to stay out of the arguments. It was always behind that bedroom door. Mandy would go in her room, she would come back out and she'd be like, oh, it's happened again. Paul, he's in one of his moods.
But she chose to stay.
I don't know why she chose to stay, but I think a lot of it is that she was actually building a home and building a life. And it's just like, to her, it was nothing. Like she'd grown used to it.
There's indication that the arguments between Paul and Mandy are escalating. It begs the question of, what's happening there. Is it that he feels he's losing control and his own insecurity is knocking at the door? When someone like Paul doesn't feel in control, he may lash out impulsively.
One day we was going up to see Mom, and we had made it from Sayersville to Prestonsburg, and we made it that far before he had called her on his break, and there was a heated argument to the point that she pulled over, and we turned around and went back. Anytime Mandy had to do anything, she had to run it by Paul and make sure Paul was okay with it. He had come home from work and he said he wasn't feeling good, so he went in there and he laid down and went to sleep. And so me and Mandy and the kids had went out to Walmart. And he was so mad when we come back because she had left without saying something to him that she actually went into the room and wasn't allowed back. She didn't come back out that night.
Here's a situation where Paul is about 20 years older than Mandy, yet he has effectively grounded her. When individuals are that controlling and domineering, it makes you wonder what else is happening behind closed doors.
Felt like she was trapped in a prison. Mandy would say things like, I feel like I'm in jail sometimes, Paul was very controlling. The last 2 or 3 months that I stayed there, we didn't really go anywhere or do anything. Pretty much the only thing he allowed Mandy to do was to do the grocery shopping.
He wouldn't let her go anywhere and do anything or see anyone. But when she stopped coming around, I knew something was up.
Several times I told Mandy that she didn't have to put up with that. She could leave, but she never would listen. It's like it was her relationship. I needed to butt out of it. It wasn't any of my business. Me and the kids would stay in that room on the opposite side of the room where her and Paul would stay. We just kept them back there unless they needed to come out and use the bathroom. It was like we were walking on eggshells, so to speak, tiptoeing around the house. I wish I would have stepped in and done something because I feel like I could have helped her out. And I wish I'd just let her know that I cared more. You know what I mean? I wish I got her out of there.
Paul is this quiet fella who keeps to himself. But as time goes on, his Facebook posts start to get more aggressive.
Last night was a tough night. I cried most of the night. The enemy wanting me to do something, but I was strong enough not to do it. Hopefully today is a better day. Now I kind of beat myself up for not putting them on my Facebook. I've never seen these.
It just hurts me. I've not seen those.
From a religious perspective, Paul may be referring to the enemy as Satan. It's also possible that the enemy is his rage, his insecurity. This is an example of an individual who seems to be fighting to control their behavior.
This Facebook post is Paul is really trying to bury those demons and keep himself from crossing that line from verbal aggression to physical aggression.
Had I seen this at the time, I'd been angry. I'd tried to help her.
It begs the question, what kind of threats could Paul LeMay have been making behind closed doors? Regardless of which way we go, we're heading into the abyss. Things are about to get worse.
One day, one of the kids had climbed up on the table and had knocked over a couple of plates and cups that was sitting on the table from when they were eating. Paul, he didn't really explode or anything. He went into the room, he had hollered for Mandy to come in there, and I don't know what was happening to Mandy. Like I said, she was in that room, they were locked in there, I don't know. They were in there for over an hour, and when they came out, they had got a change or two of clothes for each one of them. And she told me that they'd be back. That's when Paul and Mandy had left there. I could tell something was wrong. Not often my sister calls me crying. She told me she was scared for him to be around the kids. If I didn't get the kids out of there before they got back, that something was going to happen. He might hurt them or something.
There's increasing evidence that Paul LeMay is becoming unraveled. That's particularly worrisome because individuals who threaten or hurt children tend to lack remorse and empathy for others.
It did kind of scare me at that point. So the best thing for me to do for my kids was to leave. When I left there with the kids, things with Paul and Mandy got a lot worse.
The trouble was, Paul would act normal sometimes. Sometimes he didn't seem like a bad guy at all. He was nice, he was polite. To me, it was strange.
We're seeing this Jekyll and Hyde personality. We have someone who's on one hand saying, Mandy, I love you, my beautiful wife. And on the other hand, someone who is controlling her, potentially threatening children, not giving her money to go to the store. So we see these two diametrically opposed personality behaviors, and that's actually quite common in individuals who perpetrate interpersonal violence.
There was a couple months after I moved out, she was telling me that he was getting a lot more aggressive. She was telling me that Paul was starting to be more physical with her. Started out with him shoving her, and then it got to where he would get in her face and he would get more violent with her. She said she was scared that if she didn't get out of there, that she wouldn't get out of there. She called me and told me she did leave Paul. She was at a friend's house, that she was scared of him and that she didn't want to go back home. She told me they were good people, she was safe. I didn't really question it. She was out of the bad situation, so in my mind, she was good. And she told me she was going to come over for Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving is really important to our family because it's the only time we actually sit down around the table and gather around and pray over the food.
I was excited. I'm not gonna lie, it's been months since I got to see my sister, so I was excited.
The family are ready to eat Thanksgiving dinner. Dinner comes and goes. but there's no Mandy.
Nobody could get a hold of her. Nobody knew exactly where she was. I was the last one to know where she was, and she was supposed to be at that friend's house.
As the minutes turned to hours, the hours turned to days, I could imagine a whole host of thoughts, running through their head about where Mandy might be. Maybe she's in the hospital. Maybe she's just out having a good time. Maybe Mandy's gone to see somebody else for Thanksgiving, and maybe she'll turn back up.
I couldn't believe what happened next. Mandy had told me she was at a friend's house and she was safe. But then we wasn't having no luck getting hold of her. I tried contacting her phone, her Facebook, her messenger, and she just would not answer. I didn't even know where to start to go to look. I had went out and I had printed off some photos to give the state police.
The uncertainty of it all was a very terrifying moment for that family, just not knowing. Despite the family's concern over Mandy being gone for 2 to 3 weeks, on December 17, there's a post on her Facebook account.
I needed to get away from the drama and dry myself out. I will contact the ones and my family after the first of the year.
I knew reading that day that wasn't Mandy.
I love you. Please understand I'm going through hard times right now, but I will contact you after the first. Love you later.
That's words of an alcoholic. Mandy wasn't an alcoholic and didn't have to dry herself out. Everything in this is spelled exactly as it should be, down to every last apostrophe and everything, and Mandy always spelled things very weird. Her spelling was never correct, and everything in this was right. And so, reading this when it came out, everybody knew something was wrong. Everybody knew that wasn't Mandy.
Homer then contacted Paul, asking where Mandy was, what was going on. Homer asked him if it was them that posted that on there. Paul wouldn't speak back. Dad was mad, trying to find his sister. After a while, Paul says, I ain't heard from her in weeks either. That's when Dad got mad and called the cops.
Dispatcher Thompson.
Yes, ma'am. I was wondering, how do I go about filing a missing person report?
Okay, what's going on?
Okay, my sister, her and her husband had split up, and nobody has seen her since the day before Thanksgiving.
Who is your sister?
Mandy Ann King LeMay.
Okay, and what's your name?
Homer King.
Okay, and she's married?
Yes. He's telling us that he hasn't seen her since the day before Thanksgiving either.
Okay, I'll have a trooper make contact with you, okay?
Okay, I appreciate it.
Homer was really annoyed at Paul. He was wanting to know where Mandy was, but she ain't spoke to nobody in over 3 weeks.
We know from the evidence so far that Mandy has been controlled by Paul. And the family's probably thinking maybe it's just their relationship. It's very possible that Paul has Mandy trapped inside the house.
When the trooper arrives to Mandy and Paul's residence, he goes up onto the porch. The blinds are drawn. He can't see inside the residence. He hears a series of what he describes as thumps. sounded like someone was moving around in the home, but nobody ever came to the door. So that trooper immediately radios for backup. Paul is in fact inside the residence and is not coming out of the residence. The Kentucky State Police show up very quickly. It has escalated into a barricaded subject who's refusing to come out and respond to law enforcement commands and who is known to own a .22 caliber handgun. They were concerned that Mandy was being held inside the residence. As the Kentucky State Police are trying to get Paul LeMay to cooperate with their commands, they're looking for folks, neighbors, who might have any means to contact Paul. One of the neighbors happens to have Paul LeMay on Facebook Messenger. And Paul responds. Paul's still refusing to come out of the residence. But as the time goes on, Paul wants a cigarette. The Kentucky State Police tell Paul, "You've got to come to us." Paul is very reluctant to do this. So the neighbor, Pat, volunteers to take the cigarette to Paul, who's standing on the porch. Now, at this time, when Paul comes out of the residence, Paul LeMay is dressed in nothing but sweatpants and no shirt. It's December 17 in Kentucky. It's very cold, so the next door neighbor, Pat, also offers his sweatshirt. As soon as Paul LeMay gets that sweatshirt, he is rushed by two troopers who are laying in wait, and that's how the Kentucky State Police eventually got Paul into custody. The state police begin a sweep of the LeMay residence to look for Mandy. At that point, they had no idea whether she was dead or alive. When the troopers walked into the LeMay residence, they were met by the smell of death. They could smell decomposition in the air. When they get into this back bedroom, they can make out a pile of blankets, and sticking out from the bottom of that blanket is what is obviously a human foot. They pull the sheets back, and there they find the deceased body of Mandy LeMay. She had a single gunshot wound to the back of her head. What's clear, at this point, she had been there for quite some time.
I got a call from Daddy. He said, she's gone. She won't be coming back. I fell to the floor. My whole body was paralyzed for 3 days after that.
I never knew she went back there to even think that could have happened. I'm done. That's as far as I want to go.
A family in Johnson County is wishing they would have seen the signs after police say their family member, Mandy LeMay, was shot and killed by her husband.
Paul LeMay's statements to Kentucky State Police during his recorded interview tells us that Paul was obviously in a very troubled place.
I just want you to tell me what happened.
You know what happened. You want me to come out and say it? I'll say it. Yes, I killed her. I didn't want to. I loved the woman, damn it.
My guess is that Paul did it so that nobody else could have her, and she couldn't leave him.
It's gonna come out that I'm the bad guy no matter what. They're gonna take her side over me.
Paul clearly identifies as the victim. Individuals who fail to take responsibility for their own actions are some of the same individuals who are callous and lack empathy and remorse.
She would have been alive now if she wouldn't have went back. But Mandy couldn't make up her mind whether she loved him or not.
I'm gonna be betrayed as a monster.
You want to tell me how you done it?
We learned through the course of the investigation, Mandy had left the marital residence and hadn't returned for quite some time. But eventually, Mandy LeMay returns home.
I just sat on the couch looking at her.
She tells Paul that she's lost her telephone. She doesn't have one, and she needs a mean of communications. She wants to be able to reach out to her family and set up this plan to go spend Thanksgiving with her family, to have dinner with them.
She wanted to use a phone. She was talking to someone.
We know that Paul LeMay is in the house at that time, and he is likely hearing these conversations take place. He understands that in a few more days, when Thanksgiving rolls around, Mandy's going to be back out the door again, spending time with her family, and eventually, an argument between the two ensues.
At this point, Paul knows that he's lost Mandy. He's lost control of the one person in his life, the source of his ego. And now we can see that the dark impulses are going to seep back in. It's almost like a volcano erupting. This is the last straw.
What little bit of heart I had left for her, it just went away.
The evidence in this case shows that Paul LeMay went to his bedroom.
What kind of gun was it, Paul?
The .22 revolver.
He took that revolver into the living room. He put that gun to the back of Mandy LeMay's head, and he pulled that trigger.
Well, from what I was told, he shot her in the back bedroom and dragged her to their bed, and he slept next to her those several weeks that she was laying there.
In the very end, after she died, Paul still didn't want to let her go. This is indicative of yet another final opportunity for him to control her.
I reckon Paul was trying to preserve the body, because he literally slept in a freezing house next to her. We all had the funeral. It was hard for me to walk through the funeral doors. I walked out when I seen the casket and it was closed. I didn't even get to tell her goodbye.
I could have got Mandy out. Mandy could have been safe. Mandy could be here with us now.
It would have been nice if Mandy could have met my children more. I could explain to them better of how good of a person she was, and how good of an aunt she would have been, and how much they would have been spoiled. It hurts me every day that she can't be here with us today.
Paul was evaluated by 2 psychiatrists, both of whom cleared him as competent to stand trial.
You swear the testimony about to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah, I do.
Your name?
Paul LeMay.
Grand jury charges that on or about November 20, 2018, you committed the death of Mandy LeMay by shooting her in the head, which caused her death, that being the charge of murder. You wish to enter into a guilty plea based on the Commonwealth's offer on plea of guilt?
Yes.
If I accept your plea.
Paul LeMay didn't actually go to trial. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of murder, 1 count of abuse of a corpse.
Judge, on behalf of Mr. LeMay, he declines to make a statement other than to say that the truth that he would tell wouldn't be believed by anyone.
It's still very frustrating that he couldn't explain to everybody in court why he did do it.
And that's all he wanted me to say on his behalf.
And so he thought he didn't have to give his explanation. He didn't have to tell her why.
Okay. All right. So take him on back.
That's what makes me lose sleep at night, because I'll never know why. I'll never know why it happened. I'll never know.
There's likely several reasons why Paul ended up murdering Mandy. Paul wanted control from the very beginning, and he had it until the very end.
She was an amazing person.
Mandy would want to be remembered as the funny, goofy, outgoing, people-friendly person that she was. I like to think I'm going to see her again. That's what keeps me going every day. We'll see our loved ones again.
I was Andy's little sister, and, you know, I always wanted to be wherever he was. Andy definitely wanted to start a family. The first time he met Stephanie, I felt like, you know, they would be a good match for each other. Stephanie didn't really talk about her family or about her past, and it does make you wonder if there was more to this story than we know. She definitely had that Jekyll and Hyde kind of behavior.
Looking back on it now, there's some signs that we probably missed.
It's hard to think that somebody that I let in my life is capable of something so horrible.
Turn to 911.
Oh my God. I need help. Let me God.
Andy was my older brother. Everybody loved him. We did have a great relationship growing up. I was 10 and Andy had just turned 16 when my dad passed away. That was very hard. Andy was there and was ready to take on anything he needed to take on as the man of the house. And he made sure me and my mom were both very well taken care of. Andy always wanted to be a police officer for as long as I can remember.
I've worked many years with Andy Kimbrell on night shift and through the different assignments, and he was the nicest, positive attitude, happy, eager, every definition that you could think of as a good friend, a good police officer, that would fit him to a T.
When Andy came to work for the Vestavia Hills Police Department in October of 2002, he was assigned to my shift. When you describe a police officer as to serve and protect, that's exactly what he did. Always wanting to do things for other people. A real happy, positive guy.
Andy and Dawn were high school sweethearts. Him and Dawn had a great relationship. You could just feel the love between them when you were around them. Dated for years before they got married. They were, you know, beyond excited to welcome a child, and especially a little girl. They were thrilled to be parents.
He was the happiest he could ever be was when him and his wife had the baby.
I would say that it was a dream come true for him. And then subsequently, there were some medical conditions and medical issues that took a turn, and tragically, his wife passed. To say that his world stopped would be an absolute understatement.
Dawn passed away shortly after their daughter was born. He struggled. I mean, I'm sure, having a new baby was a lot for him. And then, shortly losing his wife was, a whirlwind for him at the time. And I mean, he was never the same.
Watching one of your own officers go through what he had to go through was very traumatic for all of us.
But, just like he did when my father passed away, he really just stepped up and did what he needed to do and was a great father to Emma. We always hoped that Andy would find just happiness again, just genuine happiness. He met Stephanie at a school carnival. Her son was the same age as Andy's daughter, and so they were kind of at the same stage in life. I felt like, they would be a good match for each other. When they were together, you could tell they were enjoying each other's company, and, there was an attraction there. You could definitely see that as well. Andy would be kind of silly and just very affectionate. It was nice to see Andy happy. Stephanie, her and I, we would go out to lunch occasionally. I always wanted a sister-in-law, to be able to be close to, and I wanted to get to know her. I wanted to be a part of their lives. She was very quiet. She didn't really talk about, her family or about her past, what her background was, or any, personal details about herself. I remember not being completely comfortable to ask her those things because she wasn't sharing those things with me automatically. Her background was definitely a mystery, and it does make you wonder, if there was more to this story than we know. One day, my mom came to me and said, I think Andy got married. And I, of course, was very caught off guard, and I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, he showed me this piece of paper and it looked like a marriage certificate. And I said, surely not. I said, surely he would have told us. I was a little bit shocked and, obviously hurt by, the fact that he had gone off and gotten married and didn't, tell us before or even after. Those are things you tell your family. And if you're not telling your family those things, there's a reason you're not telling them. It felt wrong, and it made me wonder whose idea was this. I think there was some manipulation going on. After they had gotten married, you could notice some problems. They would seem to be arguing quite a bit. Stephanie definitely had a temper. I just remember thinking, something's not quite right. Andy didn't really go into a lot of details, but he definitely struggled. Kind of his whole world had been rocked at the point. She was very manipulative. I feel like she did things, to deliberately get a rise out of Andy. Stephanie absolutely knew how to press Andy's buttons. Her behavior definitely felt kind of mind game-ish, for lack of better words. And then, so I definitely think that was kind of her lifestyle. There were instances where their arguments got out of control and got physical. There was one instance she threw Andy's belongings off the balcony of their apartment. They lived in a very, busy apartment at this point. So she had to know that other people were going to see it. And she may have very well done it to embarrass him. That's humiliating. When Andy and Stephanie would have arguments, Andy would go over to my mom's house. That was his escape to get away and kind of remove himself from the situation. Stephanie would follow him, essentially track him down. And Stephanie did show up at the house banging on the front door. She called him and asked him to come outside. He went outside and she went immediately up to him and kissed him. He was very caught off guard by it and kind of stepped back because this, of course, is in the midst of an argument, and, asked her what that was about. And she said, I just wanted to see if there was anything there. And she said, and there's not. And I just remember thinking, well, that was very odd. It just seemed like she was playing a game. This is not normal. This is not okay. She definitely had that Jekyll and Hyde kind of behavior. She was most definitely trying to manipulate him and assert her dominance. That was definitely the moment that I stopped being friendly with her and stopped reaching out to her. At that point, I didn't know what the future held for their relationship. I never in a million years thought it was going to turn out the way it did.
Oh my God. Andy.
I could definitely see Andy trying to have his life appear to be as normal as possible. This is a photograph that Andy had posted on Facebook. It looks like a picture that actually Stephanie took of the two of them, and underneath it there is a comment that Stephanie posted that says, "Oh, who's that hot chick in your car?" Stephanie, it appears, has definitely doctored the photo. She seems to have a filter on her face. The post is all about her, but I also think that was in Andy's nature, to be all about her. Andy responds with, "That's the most beautiful and amazing woman in the world, my partner, my other half, my best friend, my wife, Stephanie Kimbrell." He thinks obviously very highly of her and seems to be very much in love. Thinking about it now, it makes me feel a little bit sick to my stomach. Andy, even if he knew 100% that that relationship was not a good situation, I don't think he ever would have said to us, "You're right." He just tried to be the tough guy police officer.
Andy would not have been the aggressor, in my opinion. Andy was not that type of person. He wasn't the type that would run from anything, but he was also not the person that was trying to provoke anything either. Looking back on it now, there's some signs that we probably missed.
I definitely think it was getting worse. There was a situation where Andy's daughter was on the phone through Snapchat with a friend of hers, and they could see them arguing. The friend could see Stephanie and her behavior, and had even brought up the situation to her mom. The girl was that concerned about what was taking place. If that was happening that night, it was probably happening much more frequently than we heard about or knew about.
In 2018, when I got reassigned, I would see him in passing, and there would be days that he wouldn't be as jovial as normal. There was a change in his demeanor.
We had both moved on to different assignments. I think each of us knew deep inside that we wanted to talk, but we just never went to that level.
Andy was secluding himself from us, and so that was very hard to wrap our minds around. The changes in his personality alone would show you that he was struggling. We never, openly saw him tearful, but you could definitely tell that he was struggling. But it really got to the point where he wasn't spending time with my mom that much. And one day Andy had came over to the house. He had asked me if I could print something out for him. You could tell he was not in the best mood. We were in the living room together, and my son was kind of tugging on his jeans and trying to get his attention. All he had to do was kind of reach down and pick him up and, something. And it didn't happen. I knew something was going on with him because that was not like him to do that, to go from this doting uncle to, somebody that's pretty much ignoring him. And that was really a moment, I guess, that was really a turning point for me to see that. And so I very blatantly said, hey, I don't know what is going on with Stephanie or anything else, but, my child deserves to have an uncle that he knows. I'm here to help, but I'm not going to be the person you call when you need something. I want to be a part of your life. I proceeded to say some pretty hurtful things. Some I meant, some I didn't. And our relationship at that point became pretty much non-existent. That was the last conversation I had with him. I would reach out to him periodically just to, to say, hey, I just didn't get a response back. But I remember hearing their arguments became more frequent. The people that lived in the apartment complex reached out to us and told us they saw them arguing in the parking lot. These total strangers are reaching out to us, to tell us these stories. It's one thing to have an argument inside your home, but when you are completely, oblivious to that you're having an argument in the middle of a parking lot with people around, and, I definitely think that shows some sort of escalation, that things are getting out of control. There was one instance where he went to my mom's house and showed her scratches on his neck, where Stephanie had put her hands on his neck. I don't know how they got there, if she was choking him or just had put her hands on him in some form or fashion, but there were visible scratches on his neck that appeared to be, pretty significant. I think most people, including myself, when they hear of a domestic violence situation, you automatically assume it's probably initiated by a male, but things are not always what they seem. My mother was upset. She was obviously very fearful for him. Her words were, please come home. You need to get away from her. She's going to kill you. It wasn't a good situation for Andy or Stephanie or the kids. Anybody involved in it, on all sides, it was not a good situation. And it is heartbreaking to watch. He never came out and said, yes, I know that our relationship is not right.
I think that Andy just didn't know how to, or didn't know where to go to for help.
He was just completely hiding it from everybody. I think that he was good at turning it on when he needed to turn it on, that I'm fine, I'm good, just let me go to work.
But knowing Andy and the type of person he was, he wanted to fix it. We were frustrated watching it all fold out and wanting to just take him and, and shake him and say, listen to us, please do something.
Oh my God. I need help really bad.
Calm down.
I am freaking out. Please come and help.
What's going on?
My husband and I were having a disagreement. He put his gun in my hand and it just went off. I'm telling you, I had no idea that was loaded.
You shot your husband, ma'am?
Yes.
Are you responsive right now, ma'am?
I see gurgling, but no. Oh my God. Oh my God. Andy.
About 11:15, I received a phone call from our deputy chief of police, and he said, Andy Kimbrell's been shot. And I was like, where's he at? And he said, he's on his way to UAB. Andy was still alive, and I said, I'm headed to the hospital.
We were asleep in bed, and I got a call, one of the captains from Vestavia Police Department, and his words, I will probably never forget them, were, Andy's been shot, and it doesn't look good. I remember just panic, just absolutely panic, and just not knowing what to do. I didn't know. I mean, I assumed it happened at work, you know, but I didn't know, how do I tell my mom this? What do I say? What, you know, what's next? I didn't know what to do.
They brought him down to the hospital. So I walked into the emergency room. I met with the nurse and met with the doctor. They let me in the room where they were working on him. And, you know, I just remember walking in and seeing Andy laying there, and his head was bandaged up, and I could see one of his eyes. But I just remember looking at him and going, wake up. And that's when I found out that he had been shot in the head. They had him on a ventilator, and they said, we're trying to track his brain activity. And everybody was frantically trying to do anything they could for him. And so I remember asking the doctor, if he's shot in the head, is he going to make it?
When I first got the call, my sergeant called me and told me that there had been a shooting in an apartment in Garndale. When I arrived on the scene, I entered the master bedroom. The walk-in closet is to your left, and about middle ways down the wall, there's a door leading into the bathroom. There was a bloody handprint on the toilet. Inside the closet, I could definitely see blood splatter on one side of the wall. There was a large pool of blood in the corner. At first glance at the blood splatter, I could tell that it was not a long-range shot, that it was fairly close. The gun was a 9mm Glock, fairly standard issue for law enforcement. A shell casing was right outside the door of the closet on the floor of the bedroom. Whoever fired the shot was standing in the doorway of the closet or very close to the doorway of the closet. After leaving the scene, we returned to the police department. Stephanie had been placed in an interview room. We just kind of introduced ourselves, and she agreed to speak to us.
When we have a disagreement, we can't just talk. Andy can't talk. He gets really upset. He's a high-stress, high-anxiety person. So I can't talk to him because he immediately is mad, and then he storms off. And then he comes back, and then he storms, that's just how things go.
What was that argument? What was that particular time? What was the argument?
The whole thing. 90% of him being mad all last night was that trainer. I said, okay, I'm not doing anything wrong. You have nothing to worry about. Mm-hmm. Just reasonable, rational conversation. I've never been unfaithful to you. I don't so much as look at other men. You don't want to hear none of it. Lies, lies, lies. BS, BS, BS.
Stephanie told us that he'd accused her in the past of being unfaithful. So according to Stephanie, you know, this argument wasn't out of the blue. She was basically painting a picture of her being just an extremely calm, non-combative, non-argumentative person.
I don't know, we were just scuffling, and
Did he hit you or grab you?
No, nobody hit.
Did he hold him against the wall? Or what?
He just grabbed me, and I was
Standing there holding you like
in
this?
front of the closet, and he spun around and went and got the gun and pulled it out of the holster and shoved it at like my hand.
How did he hand it to you? You remember?
He just shoved it. Like, his hands weren't even off it.
Did you say anything to him?
It happened so fast, and it was just, and pow. I don't even think, I don't even know. I don't know.
I've been in law enforcement for over 24 years. I've never seen a gun just go off. On a Glock, the safety is actually on the trigger. So in order to disengage the safety, you have to pull the trigger. So, you know, it was obvious that the trigger was pulled.
When he tried to give you the gun and put it in your chest, why didn't you just walk away then? I mean, you had a way to get out of there. All you did is like, hey, and turn around. But you went and grabbed for the gun.
No, I didn't reach for it and grab for it. That's not what happened.
I mean, your hands had to be outward, or they wouldn't have touched the gun. You see what I'm saying?
I don't know. It just happened so fast.
I know that if someone is trying to shove something at me that I don't want, I'm not going to reach for it. You know, I'm going to back away, or I'm going to put my hands up. I'm not going to grab it. The longer she talked, the more question marks and red flags kept popping up.
Under her story, they were both standing up, and Andy had the gun in his hands, and he shoves it into her hands when the gun went off. But the fatal wound, the only wound on Andy, was a bullet strike to his forehead, just above the hairline.
We're trying to figure out why the wound, entry wound, would be on the top of his head. Was he kneeling down?
That towards me.
I don't think he can really be bent over far enough to where the round hits him in the top of the head.
It just wasn't possible for a gun to go off at waist level and the entry wound be basically on the top of the head. It just didn't make sense.
Can we find out about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's at the hospital and the doctors are taking care of him, so.
Paging Dr. Lund. When we got to the hospital, one of the pastors that the police department uses was there. I don't even remember what he said, but made mention of the coroner. And that's the moment that we learned he had died. And that's the moment that I learned that Stephanie had shot him. I just remember being in shock. This has to be an accident. This has to be, you know, what could have happened? Did she realize what she was doing? Did she, you know, was it an accident? Was it, I never, and even to this day, it's hard to wrap my mind that she possibly could have a gun in her hand and fire it at him. It's hard to make sense of that.
I just got off the phone with the doctors, and I'm sorry to tell you this, but he's passed away.
I mainly kind of wanted to just gauge her reaction. And so, you know, in the interview, you can see me just kind of laser focused on her, really. She sounded upset, but when she raised her head up, she wasn't crying.
And they're in the moment of, you know, letting family members know and stuff like that. So kind of going from there.
You know, I looked directly into her eyes, and they were dry as a bone. There was no tears in her eyes whatsoever. What really happened was really going on here. What Stephanie didn't know was down the hall, we had several witnesses that were present in the house that night.
I'm Detective Cannell from the police department, and you are Emma.
When I was told that, it changed everything. Down the hall, we had Stephanie's son and Andy's daughter.
I'm Detective Cannell from the police department, and you are Emma.
Andy's daughter begins to talk, and she kind of just starts describing what she's been through and, again, the loss of her mom at a young age and now the loss of her father. It was very tough not to get emotional interviewing her.
How long after they got together did they start this argument?
When they were dating, they would argue a lot, so I didn't think they would last long because they kept on arguing.
Mm-hmm. So they've been kind of bickering and fighting from the beginning.
Yeah.
During the arguments, who seemed to be the more aggressive?
She seemed more aggressive.
She did.
Then my dad screams, but she's more because I know she's hit him maybe once. And I remember him saying she put him against the wall with it on his neck like that.
According to what we were told, Stephanie was the physical abuser in the relationship. She was the verbal abuser in the relationship. That painted quite a different picture than what Stephanie was telling us. At one point in the evening, she had received a text from Andy saying, lock your doors, she's crazy.
Around 8, I texted, he told me to keep my door locked or something because she was screaming.
Stephanie's son advised us that he was asleep the entire time and he didn't hear anything.
When you went to sleep, did you go to sleep, you just kind of lay there, or what happened? You did go to sleep? Okay. So you didn't hear, okay, all right. So after you went to sleep, you wouldn't woke up by arguing or yelling or any loud noises or anything like that? You pretty sound sleeper?
Andy's daughter, she was a very important witness because not only was she directly across the hallway from the incident, she was awake the entire time.
I feel it was 10:30, something close to 11, and I heard her say something give me your gun or something. I'm gonna shoot.
When you were down there waiting on him, you and your sister talked, right? Y'all were talking, what was said, remember?
I asked her what happened, and she said that she asked him for his gun, and she said, fine, here it is, and they shoved it in her hand, and she knew it was loaded, and something about firing. Yeah. And he said, okay, and then gave it to her. I stayed because I heard that, and then it went off, and I just heard it pop.
When Andy's daughter made the comment to us, it changed everything. I know in my mind, this just changed from an accident to a possible murder. We went back down the hall and spoke with Stephanie again, and we confronted her with that detail.
He said something to the effect, if you think I'm so bad, then shoot me.
Oh, yeah, he talks to me like that all the time.
And then you replied, well, then give me your gun.
No.
So
I have never asked for that gun.
Okay, so if hypothetically, say if your kids said that they heard that, they would be lying.
Lying? No. They didn't hear what they think they heard.
See, what you don't understand is they're in 2 bedrooms with the door shut, and y'all are loud enough, but they just didn't make this up.
And they did say that.
And they did say that.
I don't know what to tell you.
Her credibility in my eyes was over. It was done.
In the mugshot, she's clearly injured. Defense attorneys and certainly members of the public, they get to see the mugshot, had some suspicions as to how she got her injuries and been blaming the victim, Andy.
Like this comment here, in the picture, you can tell she's been hit. She doesn't deserve to be in jail if she was defending herself.
It's extremely hard to read these comments, just absolutely heartbreaking. The first post says, probably beat her many times before and got away with it. More than likely, she was tired of the abuse. Andy was never abusive to her. You want to scream it from the rooftops, but there's some people that are gonna, question the situation, and especially after seeing her booking photo.
This is a video that was taken from the jail surveillance footage that shows Stephanie Keller while she is in custody and handcuffed. This was taken a few hours before her mugshot. The video itself was interesting, to say the least. And she essentially takes a step towards the vending machine. She nails the vending machine with her face. It would seem to be a very intentional act.
It's very difficult to not be able to reach out to these people that are saying these horrible things, and tell them, you're wrong, this is not how this is. This is a very different situation. When we went to the trial, any doubt that I had that this was a horrible accident just went away very quickly. It's hard to think that somebody that I led in my life and had a relationship with is capable of something so horrible. It's a hard pill to swallow to think about that.
When Andy's daughter testified, her story was very impactful for the members of the court. It was impactful for the jury. The judge did come down with a sentence of 20 years in the penitentiary for Stephanie Keller, and that was the maximum under provocation manslaughter.
I think that the sentence that she received was appropriate. I mean, you know, nothing is ever enough. It will never be enough. But it also won't change it, no matter what it is.
As a police officer, we're usually the ones that say, hey, here's how you handle this situation. And when we can't do that for ourselves, we question ourselves as to whether we're a failure. And so we have to reach out for help, just like everybody's reaching out for us to help.
Losing Andy had a very much an emotional impact on the department. Every member of the police department was at the funeral.
People came from everywhere, you know, and they just heard about it and wanted to come and show their respect. It makes you so proud to be driving down the road and seeing flags that are, you know, for him. It was definitely a moment to be proud of him. I mean, I will always be proud of him. He was a really great person and a great father. You know, I wanted to remember all the good things that he did as a police officer. Honestly, if I could say anything to her, I would ask her why. I think she's a horrible person. I think I don't even know if I should say this, but I think this could happen again, given the opportunity.